I never expected to witness a billionaire's heartbreaking encounter with a homeless girl. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sky was a stormy gray, clouds heavy with the weight of unshed tears. I stood on the corner of 5th and Main, the familiar murmur of the city surrounding me. But today, it felt different. My heart raced, my breath came quick. I had this strange feeling something monumental was about to happen. Then I saw him. Lincoln Gray. Tall and posing, a legend in the world of wealth and power. His tailored suit clung to him like a shield, yet his eyes were a tempest of confusion and pain. He moved through the crowd, an island in a sea of busy lives, and I felt the energies shift. His presence was magnetic, yet it was haunting. And there she was. A girl, no older than 10, crouched in a tattered cloak, her hair wild and unkempt. Her eyes shone like emeralds, piercing through the grime. She was out of place, a flicker of innocence in a world that preferred to look away. I couldn't help but hold my breath. The city rolled on around us, but in that moment, everything faded. Lincoln approached her cautiously. There was something in his expression I couldn't quite decipher, gentleness mixed with despair. The girl looked up, her small face shadowed. "Please. I'm hungry." Her voice was a whisper, fragile yet unyielding. In that instant, the image of the wealthy billionaire and the homeless child morphed into an eerie contrast that tugged at my chest. He knelt down, and a hush fell over those gathered around. This man, who had everything, was giving something precious, his attention. The girl reached out, trembling hands brushing against his pristine suit. It was a moment raw with unspoken stories, with invisible threads connecting two vastly different worlds. Tension crackled in the air. People nearby exchanged glances, eyebrows raised, lips pulled tight. Some whispered, "What is he doing?" Others simply laughed as if this kindness was a joke, a surreal twist in a play they didn't sign up for. I felt the weight of judgment, the disbelief, and the wonder. Then it happened. Lincoln reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp bill. Not just a few dollars, hundreds. He slipped it into her small, calloused hand. I could see the girl's eyes widen, a mix of shock and hope flaring like fire in the dark. She stuttered, "Thank you." Her smile was blinding, yet it faded almost as quickly as it appeared. I watched, almost breathless, as surprise turned to confusion on Lincoln's face. It wasn't relief, it was something deeper. Something shattered inside him. I could see it, the trembling of his fingers as he stood up, the moment stretching like an eternity. He looked away, lost in a memory I couldn't grasp. And just like that, the moment slipped through our fingers. The city resumed its pace, oblivious to the wonders and heartaches unfolding in the silence. What had just happened? What did that exchange mean? I was flooded with questions. I wanted to follow Lincoln, to uncover the story behind his haunted eyes. But the crowd swept me away, and I could only watch as he disappeared into the thrumming heart of the city. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The wind whipped through the streets, carrying the scent of rain-soaked pavement and distant voices, but it felt like a fog had settled in my heart. I couldn't shake the image of Lincoln Gray's troubled expression from my mind. What haunted thoughts lay buried beneath that powerful exterior? Was there more to the story than a single moment of kindness? Days turned into weeks, and the encounter lingered. The city pulsed with life, yet I felt distinctly detached from it all. Every time I passed that corner of 5th and Main, I searched for the girl, hoping to catch a glimpse of her smile or see if Lincoln returned to help her again. But the hustle bustled around me like white noise, leaving me with an unshakable feeling of emptiness. Then one afternoon, the storm clouds returned, heavy in the sky as chilly rain began to fall. I took shelter under the awning of a nearby cafe, the world outside becoming a watercolor painting of blurred colors and half-formed shapes. That S when I spotted her. She was huddled against the wall, drenched but steadfast, clutching the money Lincoln had given her. I felt a pull in my chest, an aching desire to approach her to understand, connect, and maybe share some warmth on this grim day. I stepped out into the downpour, my shoes splashing through the growing puddles, my heart racing with each step. As I neared, I felt something shift in the air, a silent recognition of a bond forged beneath the gaze of $1 billion legacy and the heart of a child. "Hey there," I said softly, crouching down, close enough to see the girl's emerald eyes glistening, though not from rain. "Are you okay?" She blinked up at me, surprise etched into her delicate features. "I'm fine," she stammered, but I could see the cracks in her bravado. "I'm just waiting." "Waiting for who?" I asked, my curiosity stirring like the wind around us. "For the man who helped me," she replied, clutching the bill tightly, a talisman against the storm. "He said he would come back." Her words struck a chord deep within me, a mixture of hope and despair flickering in her innocent tone. "What's your name?" I ventured, trying to draw her out from her shell of solitude. "Lila," she whispered, a hint of pride warming the air between us. "I like butterflies." "Lila," I repeated, letting the name linger on my tongue. "That's beautiful. I used to chase butterflies too when I was your age. Do you know what they symbolize?" She shook her head, now leaning in ever so slightly, intrigued. "They symbolize transformation and hope," I explained gently. "Just like you. Even on the hardest days, there's beauty and possibility in the world." She looked down at the crumpled bill, her small fingers tracing the edges. "But I'm not a butterfly, I don't know how to fly." "Yes, but even the smallest creatures can spread their wings when they find the right place," I replied, keeping my tone light. "Maybe the man will come and help you to find that place." "I wish he would," she murmured, her gaze falling to the ground. "I'm tired of waiting." I hoped, but it's been too long. My heart twisted painfully. I longed to offer her more than just words or fleeting promises. In that moment, it became clear that the world didn't just belong to the affluent. Moments of beauty were woven into the most unexpected tapestries, often overshadowed by suffering. Suddenly, a figure appeared through the sheets of rain. My eyes widened as I recognized Lincoln striding toward us, his expression taut, the lines of his jaw set in determination. As he approached, something ignited in me. Was this the answer to Lila's silent plea? Would love triumph over despair? But as he reached us, I noticed something in his eyes, a flicker of fear, as though he were wrestling with an unseen force. He paused a moment, scanning the area, and the tension in the air electrified. "Lila," he began, but the words caught in his throat. Just then, a loud shout pierced the air, and my heart dropped as I turned to see a group of rough-looking men approach, their faces twisted with anger. They seemed to converge on us like shadows gathering at dusk, their eyes fixed on Lila. "Get away from her!" one of them spat, stepping forward. The threat was palpable, the storm of uncertainty roiling around us like the clouds in the sky. Before I could react, Lincoln moved into action, positioning himself protectively in front of Lila. But in that perilous moment, I felt the weight of my own inactions, the gravity of choices not yet made, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The thunder rumbled ominously overhead, a jagged reminder that storms were not just weather phenomena but reflections of the tempests in our lives. I held my breath as Lincoln stood before us, casting a long shadow over Lila and me. His presence was commanding, yet fraught with an unease that rippled through the air. "Step back," he growled, his voice steady but laced with underlying desperation. I could see the muscles in his jaw tightening, a torrent of protective instincts raging inside him. The men, intimidating and unyielding, didn't seem to care for his authority. They advanced with a wicked intensity that fueled the storm brewing around us. "Who do you think you are, buddy?" one of them slurred, the rancor in his voice like a blade cutting through the tension. "This kid doesn't need you. She belongs to us." As the reality of their words sank in, I felt a raw mixture of anger and heartbreak. How could anyone think of claiming a child like Lila? She was not property, she was hope wrapped in innocence. Lila, Lincoln said gently, without taking his eyes off the group. Stay behind me. His voice was calm, but his eyes revealed sheer determination. She clutched my hand tightly, her little fingers trembling with fear. I wanted to pull her closer, to shield her from the storm, but it felt futile. The men were relentless, drawing closer, and I realized this was not just a fight for Lila, but for her future. The rain fell in broader strokes now, mingling with the adrenaline rushing through my veins. I had two choices: to cower in fear or to summon whatever courage I had. You don't have any right to her, I shouted, my voice wavering but loud enough to break the tension momentarily. Lincoln cast a brief glance at me, his eyes softening just a fraction, as if he were silently urging me to find my own strength. It was as if he were unintentionally giving me permission to step into the role of protector, to a notion I hadn't considered until that moment. The men paused, clearly caught off guard by my defiance. For a split second, a flame of bravery flickered within me, urging me to help Lila more than I had before. But fear gripped my heart again as the bigger of the men took a step toward Lincoln, cracking his knuckles ominously. Why don't you tell me what a rich kid like you is doing with this homeless brat, huh? He sneered. The mocking tone stung more than the rain pelting down on us. Because she deserves better, Lincoln replied, his voice unwavering. And I won't let you take her. In that moment, something shifted inside me, a growing sense of urgency that propelled me into action. We can help her, I said, my heart racing. We can both help her. The bigger man laughed, a short, derisive sound. Help her? With what? If you want to play hero, you better come correct this the scene for charity work. The situation spiraled, and I felt the ground beneath me quake in a way that had nothing to do with the storm above. They were closing in. I could sense their intentions, dark as the clouds above. My eyes darted to Lila, whose expression held an innocent blend of confusion and fear, and in that instant, it struck me. Lincoln, what if we show them we're not scared? I suggested, my voice gaining strength. What if we just walk away with her? It was a risky idea, and as soon as I voiced it, dread knotted my stomach. But I had to believe in the possibility. Lila had already been through so much. She deserved a glimmer of courage, more than our protective stances could offer. Lincoln met my gaze, a flicker of surprise lighting up his eyes before he quickly regained composure. We can't. Maybe if they see us united, it could give us the advantage, I pressed, sensing the urgency. They see a billionaire and a stranger, two people standing up for her instead of different worlds clashing. It could throw them off. The men were inching forward, and the air was thick with fear, but also an undeniable sense of impending change. Lincoln hesitated, his mind racing as he assessed the situation, but I could see at the moment he recognized that standing together might just serve as our greatest weapon. Okay, he said finally, locking his eyes on mine. On the count of 3. Ready? Lila looked back and forth between us, uncertainty etched on her delicate features, but there was a flicker of hope igniting her emerald eyes. 1, 2, 3. With that, we took a step forward together, forming a barrier of resilience against whatever storm awaited us on the other side. The men halted, surprise dawning on their faces. But just as we moved, a surge of gut-wrenching pain erupted in my chest, a sharp reminder that things could still go horribly wrong. I watched as one of the men lunged toward Lincoln, and the ground beneath us shifted again, the world narrowing until all that mattered was that single heartbeat resonating with the pulse of danger surrounding us. In that electric instant, everything hung in the balance, and the weight of our choices rippled into a future that was no longer just ours to control. I could only hope that we wouldn't be swallowed by the darkness encroaching on our fragile light. The hard truth hit me: the battle for Lila was far from over, and danger lurked like shadows at dusk, ready to pounce. And then, amidst the chaos, another sound emerged, a scream that shattered the tension, ringing out through the storm as if ready to herald the unimaginable. My heart sank heavy in my chest, chills running down my spine. What had we just invoked? The scream echoed through the drumming rain, splintering the tension that had thickened around us like a living entity. It belonged to Lila. her voice piercing through my shock and igniting a spark of urgency within me. I turned to find her eyes wide with fear, pointing past us with trembling hands. I felt my heart lurch as I followed her gaze, dread washing over me as I registered the sight. A small crowd had gathered at a distance, their faces twisted in curiosity, concern, and something darker entitlement. "Lila, stay close." Lincoln's voice broke through my daze, pulling my attention back to our immediate peril. The men had recoiled, momentarily distracted by the new faces drawn into the chaos. But I could see their muscle-bound forms tensing, anger boiling just beneath the surface. Bow rose in my throat as I caught sight of what had elicited Lila's scream, a woman stumbling towards us, desperation etched into every line of her face. Her hair was matted with rain, her clothes torn and threadbare. It was Marlene, the very woman I had thought lost to the streets long ago, whose painful story was tied to Lila's past like a frayed string ready to snap. "Marlene!" I exclaimed, torn between relief and confusion. What had brought her here? The men shuffled uneasily and shifted their weight as she approached, their expressions darkening. "You don't belong here," one muttered, stepping forward defiantly, but Lincoln positioned himself slightly in front of Lila and me, eyeing him like a lion ready to pounce. "Marlene, you shouldn't have come," I protested, already anticipating the judgment and ire of the men. Her presence felt like both a lifeline and a weight tethering us to deeper waters. But the woman didn't seem to hear me, her attention was solely on Lila. "I would never let them take her, I swear," she cried, voice hoarse with emotion. "I'm sorry I wasn't there before I didn't find you." Lila's expression shifted from fear to confusion, eyes darting between her mother and Lincoln. "Mommy?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain, like a candle flickering under a harsh wind. "What are you doing here?" I hissed, stepping closer to Marlene, heart racing. "They're dangerous. We need to get out." But I could see the turmoil etched into Marlene's face. "I've been looking for her," she breathed, desperation clawing at her words. "You don't know what I've faced, the lengths I've gone to, what I've done in the hope of finding her again." As the rain battered down, it mingled with the torrent of emotions building inside me, anger at the situation, a surge of protective instinct for both Lila and Marlene, and the chilling realization that her return threatened to unravel the fragile bond we had forged. I saw Lincoln's jaw tighten and the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He understood the stakes all too well. "Stop!" I shouted, palms raised, my voice trembling with fear and fury. "The only way to keep Lila safe is for us to stick together. You can't let them get to her." In that instant, the men seemed to regain their confidence, emboldened by the chaos. "You think that heartbreaking reunion is going to save her? You've lost your chance," one of them shouted, advancing, muscles coiled and ready. "Marlene!" I grasped her arm, feeling the heat radiating from her skin. "Please, we can't let them take you both. We're her family now." Lila's wide eyes were filled with tears, her little heart caught between loyalty and fear. The rain fell in torrents, and thunder grumbled above us like a maturing storm, ready to unleash its fury. "Family?" Marlene's voice cracked, the word hanging in the air heavy with implications. "And what about me? I'm her mother. Being a mother doesn't mean anything if you can't protect her." Lincoln's voice thundered, raw with conviction. He stepped closer, drawing Lila into his embrace, shielding her from the men and the storm, and inserting himself between the two women, the light and the shadow. In that tense moment, we found ourselves at a crossroads. Everything came crashing down, the layers of loyalty, of pain, and long-buried feelings. My heart thundered alongside the storm, confusion swirling like the rain. "Marlene," I said quietly, the storm raging not only around us but inside me. "You have to believe in love, hope, and the choices we make. We need you too. But you can't let your past decisions dictate Lila's future or ours." I could see the weariness in Marlene's eyes, the conflict raging beneath her surface as she vacillated between desperation and the love she felt for Lila. The men were closing in, and the moment of reckoning was drawing near. Then, with a sudden flicker of defiance, Marlene straightened her shoulders. You're right, she whispered, resolve slowly simmering within her. I won't allow them to take her. Not again. But just as we began to form a plan, a fragile thread knitting us together, one man lunged forward, dynamic and furious, face contorted as if hell-bent on destruction. In that split second, everything shifted again. Lincoln's protective instincts kicked in, and I saw him move swift, fierce, ready to fight, but so did Marlene. In that fleeting moment, an unexpected alliance solidified between them, a bittersweet reminder of the bond formed through shared pain. The world around me blurred, eclipsed by the shadows of anger and longing. As time slowed, an emotion I hadn't anticipated flooded through me: fear for Lila, despair for Marlene, and the terror of what this chaotic middle could bring. Then, just as the chaos erupted in a mosaic of body and intent, the storm broke the skies above, unleashing a torrential downpour, almost as if echoing the violence of the moment below. And in that fleeting interlude, as the battle raged onward, I overheard one of the men whisper something to another, something that sent a shockwave of horror down my spine, a revelation that could change everything. We know where she is. We'll find her, the deal isn't closed. And in that heartbeat of realization, I knew it wasn't just our fight for Lila that hung in the balance. It was all of our futures unraveling, tied together in a way I never expected. Marlene surged forward, the wild desperation in her eyes igniting a fire that could not be extinguished. I felt as though we were standing on a precipice, each moment stretching into eternity, as the storm raged around us. The rain lashed at our faces, and I could scarcely hear Lincoln shout for us to retreat as he intercepted punches, his movements fierce and protective. Lila, stay behind me. Lincoln's voice rose above the cacophony, a lifeline amidst chaos. But Lila, her little face stricken with fear, wouldn't budge. Her gaze darted between Lincoln, her mother, and the specter of violence that loomed over us all. Desperation clawed at me as I pulled Lila close. We have to go, sweetheart. Now! I cried, my voice trembling, the urgency of our plight unrolling like the storm clouds above. But she stood frozen, eyes widening as she watched her mother grapple with one of the men, a raw desperation fueling Marlene's every movement. Mommy! She screamed, the word laced with an innocence that cut through the din like a knife. Marlene, don't! I shouted, horrified by the rage igniting within her. But the woman I'd once thought lost to the streets was fighting a battle far deeper, an unyielding instinct to protect her daughter that defied everything she'd suffered. And then, just as it seemed the confrontation would culminate in darkness, a voice rang out. It was one of the bystanders, a young woman with bright red hair, standing on the outskirts of the crowd. Stop! This isn't a circus! She shouted, her voice strident and unyielding. Let us not forget why we're here. The crowd hesitated, confusion painting their features. It was a small moment of hesitation, a crack in the emotions that had frozen them in place. She stepped forward, unwittingly lending a shield to us as her presence drew the skeptical gazes away from the chaos that consumed us. Marlene took a step back, breath heaving as she appeared to wrestle with the battle raging inside her. The moment of clarity pierced through her anguish. She was fighting for Lila. But would this battle draw blood? Marlene, let us take her. We'll keep her safe, I begged, my heart in my throat as I grasped Lila's hand tighter. In that breath, I could see the cracks forming in Marlene's resolve. The vulnerability of her spirit exposed against the backdrop of her fierce love. No! I'm not letting anyone take her from me again! She yelled, voice rising like the storm, filled with a raw need that momentarily stunned everyone into silence. Lincoln seized that moment, stepping closer again, each sinew of his body coiled in readiness. You don't need to fight, Marlene. Trust us. We can figure this out together. His voice held an edge of vulnerability that seemed to cut through the clamor, his eyes pleading. Then, the piercing sound of sirens echoed in the distance, growing closer. The tension palpable, I could feel the shift in the atmosphere. A surge of panic flooded through me. We need to move. Now. Who are you all? The red-haired woman's bright voice trembled but remained steady. You're not here to help. You're part of the problem. Anger flared in the men's eyes at the thought of being challenged by someone outside their ranks. They surged forward, emboldened again by the chaos. But it was at that precise moment Marlene turned to us, desperation contorting her features, the weight of her choices crashing down. "Can you really keep her safe?" she murmured, tears mingling with the rain on her cheeks. "Yes. I swear. We'll protect her from everything that you faced." I promised, my heart unwavering, craving connection, desperate for assurance that we would shield Lila. Marlene's eyes searched mine, a flicker of hope igniting amidst doubt. It was brief, mere seconds, but it felt like a dawning possibility. But before she could respond, one of the men lunged past Lincoln, hand landing upon Marlene's shoulder, and in that fleeting moment, everything shattered again. "Marlene!" I screamed, instinct overtaking me as I lunged forward. But in another heartbeat, Marlene pried herself from his grip, spinning around. "No! Stay away! From me!" she shouted, the thunder above mirroring the storm in her heart. Then in a surprise twist, instead of attacking, Marlene collapsed to her knees, the fight visibly draining from her as the rain battered down relentlessly. "I can't keep doing this," she whispered, eyes filled with defeat. "I can't fight the world." The men paused, confused by her sudden vulnerability, and in that moment I saw it my chance to protect Lila. I bent down beside Marlene, the wet earth cold beneath my knees. "Marlene," I said quietly, my heart racing, "let us fight for you. We'll fight together, not against each other. But I need you to trust me." And just as the sentiment hung in the air, like fragile glass ready to shatter, the sirens blared nearer, the act of salvation drawing ever closer. I could see panic igniting across the crowd as the men looked ready to flee, mere shadows in the storm. But as I reached for Lila, a new realization dawned over me. In the chaos, the bond between us could either save or sink us all. Just as hope flickered back to life, a voice emerged from the shadows, a familiar figure, lurking just outside the turmoil. "This isn't over," came the chilling whisper, a promise tainted with malice. My heart dropped as recognition unfurled in my chest. Just as I felt a rush of vulnerable hope, doubt clawed its way back because this voice represented everything we fought against. And just like that, as the storm raged on, destiny realigned yet again, leaving us on the brink of destruction and a flicker of salvation, hearts entangled in the darkest web of desperation. Rain continued to pummel the pavement, each drop echoing the chaos swelling around us. My heart raced as I felt the pull of Marlene's despair intertwining with Lila's fearful gaze. The air was thick with tension, a tapestry woven of fear and fleeting hope, and as the men shifted, their brutish faces contorting, I knew we were teetering on the edge. "Marlene!" I implored, searching her eyes for the glimmer of trust I desperately hoped to see again. "We can't let them win. Not now, when you've come so far." But her gaze dropped to the ground, the burden of years etched onto her features. "And what if I can't? What if I fail her again? The weight of it's crushing." Her voice trembled, and I could see the panicked breaths she struggled to control. A heavy miasma of guilt enveloped me as I remembered the nights we spent trying to piece together a life that felt unattainable, the dreams we once shared, the light that had flickered out too soon. "You're not alone in this. We are stronger together. You have us." My voice broke slightly, the words tasting bitter on my tongue but full of truth. Just as those words hung in the air, a groan of thunder erupted from the sky, matching the turmoil inside us. In that moment, a sudden surge of humanity crested through the crowd. A young father held his daughter's small hand, shielding her from the chaos with his own body. Her bright red raincoat stood out against the backdrop of darkness, and it struck me how small acts of love could shine through despair. "This isn't about you," I shouted, my voice rising above the storm, encompassing the crowd. "It never was. You didn't think about your choices when you brought violence to this space. You don't hold the power here." More people began stepping forward, uncertain but driven by a collective yearning to be part of something greater than their fears. The tension shifted, and the men hesitated, their bravado faltering against the rising tide of solidarity. "Marlene," I breathed, my voice gentle but firm, "the world may feel heavy on your shoulders, but we are here to share the load. Will you let me help?" Her eyes, once so stormy with conflict, began to shimmer with an unspoken understanding. Yet as I hoped for the bond between us to tighten like a protective net, the voice that seeped through the rain's cadence grew ever more sinister. "I always knew you were weak," the shadowed figure hissed, stepping closer. The damp air around us grew colder, as if the skies themselves were peeling back layers of warmth to reveal the chilling truth. "Leave her alone!" Lincoln roared, stepping in front of us, his body a shield as anger radiated from him like heat off a fire. "Your fight is not with her." There was something in his stance that felt like a last stand, as if every ounce of his being had called upon an ancient protective instinct. I could see the way he trembled, how the vulnerability in his fight for Marlene mirrored the battle within her, a silent exchange of strength and fear woven together with threads of hope. But the figure laughed, a sound dark and hollow. "You think you're safe? All this? Just an illusion, a mirage in the storm. You haven't seen the true depths of despair yet." My heart sank as the lurking presence became clearer, illuminated by the flickering streetlight. It was someone I hadn't expected, a face from the past I had hoped never to see again, the kind of haunting figure who embodied everything we had tried to escape. "Elias," I breathed, the name escaping my lips like a fateful whisper. I could feel Lila clutching my hand, desperate for reassurance, while Marlene's body tensed beside me, her expression shifting from vulnerability to fear, an embodiment of the very struggles she had faced. "Someone should have warned you never to look back, my dear," he taunted, his eyes glinting with malevolence that threatened to render our fight futile. "This isn't the end, it's just the beginning." All around us, the crowd surged with either fear or renewed spirit as uncertainty danced in the rainlight. Hope was no longer a delicate thread, it had transformed into a thundering heartbeat, demanding attention amid the darkness that engulfed us. And then, as if the storm above were approving the enigmatic power of our resolve, another sound joined, an unexpected siren ringing clearer than before, signaling salvation just around the corner as police vehicles illuminated the chaos with their swirling lights. But with renewed hope came the crushing weight of impending danger. I turned back to Marlene, my heart clenching in my chest. "Please don't let fear define you. This is your chance. We can rebuild, we must. Lila needs you. We need each other." Her eyes met mine, and I searched for the glimmer of trust that had begun to form amidst the storm. But Elias stepped closer, sealing a rift with his wicked charm as he leaned in, voice low and taunting. "You think they will save you? All this time you've built your fortress of dreams, but it won't stand against the tides. You'll see." My breath itched, the weight of his words sinking in, mixing with the acrid taste of dread that filled my mouth. With every heartbeat echoing in the chaos, I understood we were standing on the precipice of far more than confrontation. It was a beckoning to face our own darkness, a treacherous climb that loomed above the fragile threads we had woven. And then, just as the silhouettes began to scatter, illuminated by the flickers of blue and red lights, another realization washed over me, a glimmer that twisted like a knife in my side, slicing through the tension that gripped my heart. What if Elias wasn't just here to destroy us? What if he bore a truth that could rip apart everything Marlene and I had fought to hold together? Without warning, the crowd shifted again, and the tide of our fragile hopes teetered, leaving us poised on the brink as shadows and sirens mingled into a cacophony of uncertainty. The echoes of sirens hovered above us like specters as I tried to shift my focus back to Marlene. The whirlwind of emotions, the fear, the anger, the gnawing terror of Elias's taunts constricted my chest, and I could hardly catch my breath. "Please," I whispered, my eyes pleading with hers, let us not let him get inside your head." But as the chaotic energy surrounded us, I couldn't help but notice a fracture in Marlene's resolve. The years of claiming her own strength seemed to falter beneath Elias's poisonous words, and I needed something, anything, to bolster her faith in us. "Do you remember the summer we first danced in the rain?" I suddenly blurted out, trying to pierce through the heavy atmosphere clinging to us. "The laughter? The freedom? We were invincible, remember? I believe we can reclaim that feeling, the joy we sometimes forgot existed." Marlene blinked rapidly, fighting back tears that mirrored the downpour surrounding us. It was as if momentarily, behind the storm cloud of despair shadowing her heart, a small flicker sparked. She let out a shaky breath, allowing the ghost of a smile to touch her lips. I do remember we were ridiculous. A spirit of tenacity ignited in those whispered memories, lifting the weight just enough for her to stand taller. Yet Elias's dark presence loomed unyieldingly nearby, returning with that bone-chilling laughter. Nostalgia won't save you, he sneered, throwing his arm wide as if to embrace the chaos. The past is but a sucker punch, and right now, it is the future you should fear. Just then, amidst the flurry of flashing police lights and onlookers who clutched their loved ones, a figure emerged from the shadows, a homeless woman, visibly aged by the trials of life, yet her eyes glinted with an unsettling wisdom. She stepped closer to us, disregarding the chaos as if it held no relevance to her world. Her heart still beats, doesn't it? The woman said, her voice raw yet soothing. Even in the puddles of despair, there's always a flicker, child. A flame that refuses to dim. I felt the tension ease slightly, the crowd surrounding us rapt with curiosity about this unexpected voice of compassion. Leaning slightly closer, Marlene bit her lip, her expression caught between wonder and caution. Who are you? My voice broke the silence, but the woman offered only a serene smile. A wayfinder, just like you, came her reply, each word laced with solemnity and strength. Fear can tether you to darkness, but love can set you free. I could see Lila, shielded by Lincoln's side, her little face scrunched in bewilderment. The woman paused, searching through the gathering storm to find the child's gaze. You have much power, sweet one, she continued. Kindness will weave bonds stronger than chains. It was a small moment of hope, this stranger's words washing over us like warm sunshine peeking through the clouds. But just as I began to feel that hope solidify within my chest, the mood shifted. The blue and red lights flickered erratically, bringing urgency when I saw officers approach the troublemakers, yet Elias stood his ground, unperturbed and devising his next sinister move. Your little charade will end soon enough, he snarled, eyes glinting in the tumult, and you'll find that the world outside your dreams is far deadlier than anything your precious past could ever offer. Then, the sirens seemed to crescendo, drowning out all other sounds as I watched in horror. More officers rushed in, guns drawn, implementing a force I hadn't anticipated. Thick tension settled in the air, heavy like the clouds hanging ominously above. Marlene! I shouted, as the officers began to separate the fleeing figures of the men confronting us. My gaze danced between her and the encroaching storm of law enforcement. Stay with me. Keep your heart open. We will fight this. But even as I urged her, my heart sank as she averted her eyes to Lila. The fear was beginning to ripple through our small circle again. The reality of it, the potential of losing everything we fought for, pressed down on us, enveloping us in daunting shadows. The homeless woman, that improbable beacon of light, stepped towards the chaos. Remember this, young ones, every night must end, but only when you meet the dawn will you see how brave you truly are. Her voice wove through the tension, yet Elias's icy laughter sliced through it, cold and mocking. You won't win, he hissed, watching us with unyielding interest. The dawn comes to the ones who believe they've escaped, yet fear will always be lurking behind. Welcome to your reckoning. Then, just as the tumult was about to burst, a shocking revelation broke through the cacophony of rain and sirens. The homeless woman turned her gaze towards me and whispered, "You're stronger than you know. Don't let your heart be shackled by what you fear." Her expression twisted with urgency. As she stepped back into the enveloping darkness, I felt a sudden chill race down my spine. In that fleeting moment, an unsettling connection flickered between us, a sense of shared pain and strength. But confusion clouded my heart. Was she someone I recognized from a past I thought long buried? Marlene, I struggled to find my voice, the world around us abuzz with frenetic energy as blue lights played tricks on my mind. Just what had I been unable to see before? And as her gaze met mine, a terrible realization coiled within me, each heartbeat drumming a chilling question. What if she possessed the answers? Is she part of a truth that could unravel everything we desperately tried to weave together? The rain dipped heavier, drenching me in uncertainty as I fought against an oncoming wave of doubt, realizing that salvation had morphed into something dangerously elusive. In the end, No one could assure that the comfort we craved was just a heartbeat away, for the storm was far from over. As the echoes of sirens faded into the distance, the palpable tension lingered, electricity crackling in the air. I searched Marlene's eyes for a hint of understanding, a flicker of that unwavering spirit she had once possessed, but doubt clouded her gaze. The storm above us had nothing on the turmoil brewing inside her, and the fragment of hope that the homeless woman inspired was drying up like the last remnants of sunlight fading behind the horizon. "Marlene," I began, searching for the right words to break through the fear encasing her heart. "You're stronger than this. Remember the nights we stayed up talking about our dreams? We were a force, two souls destined for greatness. Don't let him poison that vision." But Elias's laughter echoed once more, snide and relentless, drowning out my attempts to reclaim her. "Dreamers, you too? Pathetic. The real world is ruled by those who wield power, not by wilted fantasies of what could be." As I tried to rally my thoughts, I caught sight of Lila peeking from behind Lincoln's sturdy form, her wide eyes filled with an unsettling mix of fear and curiosity. It broke my heart to see her innocence threatened by the shadows of a reality we had tried to shield her from. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Are we safe? Marlene!" I turned to her frantically. "We need to stay strong for Lila. She is watching us, and she deserves to see us fight back." Marlene's shoulders trembled as she took a shaky breath, but I could tell her resolve hung precariously. Then suddenly, a powerful flash of lightning illuminated the treacherous landscape around us, and we all instinctively flinched. It felt like a warning, a call to arms against a brewing storm far worse than the weather. Just as I thought despair would tear us apart completely, a glint of bravery sparked in Marlene's eyes. "You're right," she said, her voice wavering yet filled with conviction. "We can't let him win. We can't let him take our hearts." As another burst of laughter erupted from Elias, I gripped her hand tightly, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath mine. It was a moment both fragile and potent, a lifeline thrown into swirling waters. But before we could navigate that treacherous sea, something stirred in the corners of our shared reality, adding to the weight of uncertainty. Then, as if plucked from thin air, the homeless woman returned, her presence displacing the gravity we felt. "Hold on to each other," she urged, her voice a soothing balm amidst the chaos. "Each step forward is a step away from darkness." I was puzzled by her unwavering confidence, a sharp contrast to our shivering fears. "But how can we move forward when everything feels so uncertain?" "We're surrounded by shadows," I implored. "What do we have to rely on?" "Look around you, child," she replied softly. "Even in the darkest moments, when the rain roars and the world feels hostile, kindness still sprouts in unexpected places." She gestured toward the nearby crowd. A couple, facing fierce adversity of their own, shared a quiet embrace. Across the street, a teenager offered his jacket to an older man huddling under an awning, a small act of compassion amidst chaos. "See? Hope often emerges in the cracks between despair and fear," the woman continued, her voice unwavering. "It's there for you to seize. Love isn't a battle cry but a gentle whisper, urging you to keep going." I swallowed hard, struggling against the tide of darkness creeping around the edges of our moment. "But what if those cracks don't hold?" I questioned, my voice a tentative plea. "What if we get swept away?" The woman turned to me, her eyes locking onto mine with the intensity of years lived through storms and survived miracles. "Then you rebuild stronger. You bend, but you never break. The same fire that swells inside you can light a path for others, too." Marlene's grip tightened, a shiver of understanding coursing through her. "We can be the light," she murmured, and her eyes sparkled with distant nostalgia, memories shimmering beneath the surface of her uncertainty. But just as resolve began to take root, a piercing shriek disrupted our moment. A young boy, not much older than Lila, cried out in fear. A flash mob surged through a nearby street, a chaotic break further igniting fears. Panic gripped the air as bystanders scrambled, chaos erupting once again from the relative calm we had tried to seize. Before I could react, a hand shot out, grabbing Lila before I could intervene. A man, face obscured by shadows, scooped her up with an urgency unsettlingly familiar. "Get away from the danger!" he bellowed, darting toward the street that suddenly became a battleground of confusion. "Lila!" I screamed as I felt Marlene's hand slip from mine. The fear opened deep within me, raw and unrelenting. It carved into my gut as I watched our world spiral further into oblivion. The crowd erupted into chaos, screams colliding with laughter as innocent lives collided with harrowing uncertainty. I fought against the swell of bodies, the horde of fear robbing my breath as I pushed towards where Lila had vanished with the stranger. "Stay together!" I called out, desperation fueling my cries. But even I could barely hear myself over the loathsome echo of Elias's triumphant laughter surging above us, drowning out any hope. In that cacophony of chaos, I felt a thread loosen, a bond fraying as we desperately sought one another. But Elias, with his dark power, loomed like a storm cloud over our fragile circle. And for the first time, I realized the true dimension of darkness that enveloped us. What if he had been the one to orchestrate our disarray, to slit apart our graces with deliberate cruelty? Just as the storm raged around us, that powerful connection to the homeless woman flickered in my mind, beckoning with urgency. What had she seen in me? A connection that was not purely chance but something that tied all of us together, both the lost and the found. That realization sent me barreling forward, a tumultuous tide pulling against the current of chaos. But as mid-afternoon darkness began to envelop everything, one thought suffocated me. Would we emerge from the storm in time, or would the shadows consume us whole? In the midst of the chaos, time collapsed around me, each second stretching into infinity, as I pushed through bodies jolted by fear. The relentless laughter of Elias clashed with the screams and shouts, filling the air with a desperate tension that threatened to swallow us whole. My heart raced, pounding in rhythm with the thunder that echoed ominously above. "Lila, where are you?" I gasped, my voice strained as I navigated the thrumming crowd. The blinking streetlights cast eerie shadows that danced in the frenzy, creating a nightmare of obscured faces and engulfing darkness. Each movement felt like wading through treacle, as if the universe conspired to keep me from reaching her. Suddenly, I felt a firm hand encircle my wrist, yanking me backward. I struggled against the grasp, ready to lash out until I recognized the harried face of a concerned passerby. "You need to go that way. The mob is headed toward the park. Don't go against the current," he shouted, urgency etched into every line of his face. "No! I can't leave without my daughter," I pleaded, fighting the urge to claw my way free from his grip. My eyes scanned the wreckage of panic swirling around, desperately clinging to the slender thread of hope that Lila remained within reach. "Separate paths pull you further apart. Find another way around," he insisted. There was a kindness in his frantic gaze, something familiar that grounded me amidst the rising tide of despair. For a moment, I questioned whether he was simply a figment of my imagination or a beacon of hope resurfacing in the darkness. I nodded, heart hammering with urgency, and tore my gaze from the mass of chaos spilling toward the park. With a determined breath, I dug deep, steeling myself to forge a new path. I was not about to collapse into defeat, not when Lila needed me, not when Marlene was counting on me. I turned and broke through the wall of bodies to move toward the side streets. As I ran, flashes of kindness unfolded in front of me during this overwhelming storm. The man with the jacket shielding another from rain, the stranger helping an old woman regain her footing. In moments when fear threatened to drown all sense of resilience, these flickers flickered with a warmth that lent courage. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Marlene. She stood rigid, flanked by Lincoln, a myriad of expressions crossing her face: fear, doubt, yet something else, something illuminated. "Where's Lila?" she asked through gritted teeth, searching the crowd desperately. I shook my head, the unspoken panic settling around us in thick layers. "But that man took her. I swear he..." My words crumbled, becoming nothing more than a shout lost amidst the chaos. "Marlene! Look over there!" Lincoln's voice cut through the noise, his expression darkening as he pointed toward a shadow slipping into the park entrance. A familiar small figure struggled against the looming darkness. A boy, possibly around Lila's age, but my heart sank as I fathomed the implications. What if he had truly fallen into Elias's hands? "Marlene!" I shouted, my heart plummeting again. "We need to go. We can't let him get to her." Before we could form a coherent plan, the panic shifted, the air vibrating with a new wave of frenzy. A group of teens surged toward us, eyes wild with adrenaline. "Over there! We need to rally together," one of them called out, maintaining a sense of control over something seemingly impossible. Marlene hesitated, and I could feel the weight of her indecision pressing against me. "We can't lose her," I urged, desperation bubbling over. "We have to fight." But just as she reached for my hand, a high-pitched scream echoed. A boy's voice ricocheted through the air, pulling us all taut like strings snapped taut. "No! Someone help me!" It sliced through the chaos like glass, catching Marlene, Lincoln, and me in its wake. Our eyes locked, realizing the horror of its origin. My heart sank to my stomach as it clicked, a nightmare unfolding in real time. With fervent determination, we plunged toward the park entrance, fueled by the desperate cries that echoed in our hearts. The shadows twisted ominously under the streetlights, growing longer and darker as the night deepened. Each step closer heightened the gravity of what lay ahead. Hope mingled with fear in a dizzying dance. The scene opened before us, revealing a small huddle just past the slender bridge bathed in yellow light. There, beneath the weight of uncertainty, we spotted familiar faces. The boy from the park, writhing beneath the grip of a larger figure, was none other than Lila's old friend. Shadows cloaked the man, his intent dark and consuming. With each moment hovering between dread and determination, Marlene grasped my arm tighter. "What if we don't reach them in time?" she breathed, her voice barely making it past the lump in her throat. "Then we'll try. That's all we have," I responded, clenching my fists against the whirlpool of emotions threatening to unravel me. But before we could push forward, the darker silhouette turned, revealing an unexpected face. A glint of recognition washed over me, my memories churning to life. The cogs of uncertainty clicked. It couldn't be, could it? Before realization registered fully, he caught my eye, a twisted smile creeping across his face. The echoes of his laughter rang like a jagged bell in my ears. "Elias, welcome to the show. Where do you think you're going?" he taunted, his words dripping with malice as he tightened his grip on the boy, the shadows spinning a cruel game around us. In that moment, heartbreak clawed beneath my skin, a deep, bone-deep sorrow claiming me, and I wondered again if light could indeed bloom amidst despair, or if darkness stood poised to win. Hope and dread collided at the edge of the unexpected as our confrontation began, teetering on the brink of destruction. Time itself threatened to fuse itself into the unfathomable silence that followed, and I braced myself for a truth I had never wanted to know, understanding that everything I loved hung perilously in the balance. The chaos roared around us, a chorus of shouts and cries echoing in the ever-widening abyss that seemed determined to swallow Lila, Marlene, and me whole. I felt the violence of desperation clawing at my heart as I stared at Elias blocking our path, a specter of the pain we were fighting against, and one that must not win. My life's purpose surged inside me, palpable and fierce. I understood then that we were tangled in a fight deeper than circumstances. It was a reckoning of our very souls. "Let him go!" I shouted, every pulse in my body thrumming with fury and fear. My words hung in the air, wavering against the backdrop of the storm, but they bore the weight of all I had witnessed, the resilience housed in the tiniest of hearts. Elias only laughed, the sound dark and twisted, almost a challenge. "Why? What do you think will happen here? This is far beyond the likes of you." His hand tightened around the boy just enough to send ripples of terror through the child, and my heart clenched, another life caught in the undertow of greed and despair. "Marlene!" I turned, catching her eye amidst the madness. There was a moment, a heartbeat, where my fears and courage collided. We need to wear our bravery like armor, not just for Lila, but for ourselves. This madness ends now. Marlene's eyes widened, holding my gaze tightly as I felt the tether between us begin to spark, a shared conviction igniting the sway of our past, our present, and the fragile hope of a future still untouched. I saw it in her expression. The fear began to ebb and flow as resolve took its place. But what if we fail? Maybe I'm just not strong enough, she whispered, the anxiety dripping from her words, the burden of motherhood shadowing her every thought. Then we will fight not for that certainty alone but for each other. For Lila! You've survived so much. I pressed forward, pushing against the thoughts that weighed us down like heavy chains. This isn't just your battle, it's ours. Together, we can challenge fear and rewrite our stories. With renewed strength, Marlene nodded, and the epiphany sparkled in her eyes as she approached Elias, steady and unwavering. You will not take him, nor will you take my daughter, she said firmly, with authority I had longed to see emerge. Elias's laughter faltered slightly, confusion flickering momentarily across his features. But I didn't stop there. We have power that you cannot even begin to comprehend, I shouted, spirit relentless. Love is fiercer than hatred, and you will not defeat us. The shadows shifted, the crowd brimming with the pulse of life around us cast glances of hesitance at the conflict unfolding, and in that moment, something shifted. I could feel the energy sway in our favor, the people rallying to join us, inspired by the flicker of solidarity igniting in the storm. But before Elias could react, I surged forward, gathering my courage with each step, seeking Lila, not just the physical essence of her, but everything she represented, everything she needed to survive. Lila! I'm right here. I could barely hear my own voice above the uproar. Even amidst the turbulence, I caught glimpses of her small figure peeking out despondently from behind Lincoln. Stay there, Lila. Please! Lincoln's voice carried above, tethering us all together, unyielding and fierce. But Elias's grip tightened on the boy, as if feeding off our fears. Finally, adrenaline coursed through me like wildfire as I squeezed past the amalgam of bodies and shadows, a blaze of determination igniting within me. Just as I reached for that lost child, a flash of movement caught my eye. It was not just me who sought connection. The crowd began to rally together. Hands tangled in solidarity reached toward Elias, a wave of heart and humanity surging around him, like a bright tide against the shadows he thrived in. We won't let you take anyone else, an elderly man shouted, raising his cane high as if it were a sword of righteousness. This is our city, our people. You will not hold our hearts hostage. Elias's smugness began to crumble under that tide, a ripple of uncertainty taking shape as he found himself surrounded not by fear but by love, a force more potent than any illusion he had cast. Then came a transformation not just in Marlene or me, but in every individual who had joined us. The echoing cries of hope crescendoed into a rhythmic pulse that matched the frantic beats of our hearts. The laughter began to fade, snatched away by the hands of unity. Where despair lost its dominion, in that instant, everything seemed to align. A kaleidoscope of strength wrapped around each of us, and I felt my own heart swell with inspiration, the power to turn the tide pressing against me. Lila! I called again, letting every ounce of love permeate my voice, guiding her courage. We're together. Please believe in us. A moment stretched into eternity, an invisible string pulled taut, binding us through the chaos. I was no longer alone in this fight. We had all become wayfarers in search of light, daring to believe that hope could prevail against the darkest shadows. And finally, in the crosshairs of our confrontation, I saw her then, Lila's timid yet fierce face peeking through Lincoln, that rush of relief crashing into me like the storm released, her emerald eyes sparkling with admiration, reflecting the sheer power of our connection. Mommy! She yelled, and the world echoed in harmony with her. That small cry transformed our fight into a call to arms as her hands reached out for us, bridging the divide. At that moment, in the cacophony of voices and cries, a fierce stillness filled my heart. I was just breaking through darkness. Each heartbeat was a promise of safety and belonging, echoing through the depths of my soul. Then, as the shadows faltered, witnessed by the crowd that rallied together, I pulled Lila closer, my heart swelling as I whispered, "We will be okay, my love. We will rebuild." And together, we embraced the storm that had shaped us, entwining ourselves in a tapestry of resilience, and for the first time, I believed that love had sown compassion into the very fabric of our being. As the sunlight broke free from behind the storm clouds, A moment of serene beauty washed over the world, filling the air with golden hues. Releasing the warmth which now felt like freedom, a victory so profound it resonated deep within us all. At that moment, I looked into Lila's twinkling eyes and gripped Marlene's hand tighter, whispering with raw conviction, "We can become the butterflies, Lila. We will fly." And as the last remnants of darkness faded around us, I realized that storms may batter us, but they could never extinguish the flame that lived within our hearts. After all, it wasn't just about surviving the storm, it was learning to dance through it, together.